And welcome to the Down in Front podcast. How's it going, guys? We are here. We are excited. We are super pumped. And we are super glad that everybody went and voted for us to review a full feature episode of Logan Lucky on Twitter. So thank you so much for our fans, because it was super close. And I was just excited the amount of people who actually went out and voted. So I want to start off with appreciate that. And thank you. And a happy September to everybody. I am here with two of my best friends. And what we're going to do tonight on the Down in Front podcast is review Logan Lucky, one of the newest feature films that stars a bunch of famous and amazing people. And we're going to talk about some things that we're drinking, some things that we're watching, and really kind of get into the real nitty-gritty for this actual review. So before we get too far into it, I'm going to toss it over to the man who has the most beautiful voice in the entire world. After Morgan Freeman, I'm sorry. Bradley, how's it going, man?
How's it going?
Good.
Andy Dufresne crawled through a river of shit to freedom.
Seriously, you should probably record that entire book. I'll listen to it.
I should just narrate books while I sit here.
Do it. What you been watching? What you sipping on?
I am sticking to the classy Gentleman Jack.
Gentleman Jack.
Nice long pour right here. Nice. With some rocks in it. And what I've been watching recently, not much, but every once in a while, when I'm bored, I'll turn on Apple Music's new series, Carpool Karaoke. This series. So this takes the little Carpool Karaoke skit that James Corden had on his late night show and turns it into a 20-25 minute episode. And it's really good. I mean, it's just as entertaining as that sketch was, and they find ways to make his shows still enjoyable, even while doubling the amount of time they spend on these characters. One cool thing they do is they don't have James Corden kind of run every single episode. They get different cast of characters. So you'll get like Sansa and Arya from Game of Thrones have their own episode. One of my favorite episodes was Seth MacFarlane and Ariana Grande.
Nice.
Doing a Carpool Karaoke where they were doing all musicals. Because I didn't know this. I learned this watching is that she started in the theater, and they're both in the Little Shop of Horrors show that's in Los Angeles right now.
Oh, nice.
So I thought that was really cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And it's I wouldn't say it's nothing's superb, spectacular. It's got it's just watching a couple people in a car sing, and it is what it is, and it's pretty fun to watch if you have nothing else to watch.
Cool. So that's Carpool Karaoke on Apple Music?
Apple Music.
Cool.
Yep.
Well, as always, it's great to hear your voice and see a beautiful face, so thanks for coming on and hanging out with us again.
Thank you.
Of course. I want to toss it over to my good friend, my buddy, my pal, my guy, Mr. MOCHA. How's it going, man?
Hey, everybody. I'm doing great. How about yourselves?
Going well. Very well. Thanks for asking.
Hi, Dr. Nick.
Hello, everybody.
Hello, everybody.
Who's everybody? Sorry, that was a terrible Hubert Farnsworth impression, but it's out there in the ether. It's going to be published. I mean, you all know it.
Good try. I mean, it's A for effort, right?
Yeah, at least I was brave. Yeah. At least I...
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Anyway, what are you watching?
As you can probably tell, I've been drinking, and what I'm drinking tonight is Apothic Crush. If you'll remember the last week, or with the Game of Thrones episode, rather, I was drinking Apothic Dark, and I'm trying to sort of, explore the various opportunities that are available with the Apothic brand for wine. I don't know anything about wine, so when I find one that tastes okay to me, I kind of stick with it. The Apothic Crush is good. It's smoother. It's a bit lighter than significantly lighter than the dark. And I like it. I am a big fan of the dark, though. I think that's where I would lean towards if I had to pick one of them to live and the other to die. It would definitely be the dark. But it's good so far.
Nice.
Yeah.
What type of notes and body does Apothic Crush have?
Oh man, its body is thin. Is that how you talk about wine body?
Sure.
It's not heavy set. It is thin. But in terms of its notes, there are notes of caramel, and this is from the label in the back. It has a velvety smooth mouthfeel.
Ooh.
Mouthfeel is a phrase that I'm a huge fan of. I think it's one of the biggest things anyone can say about any sort of like food or drink. So yeah, shout out to Apothic with their velvety smooth mouthfeel. I'm all about it.
There you go.
Nice.
As for what I've been watching lately, I had the great misfortune to go to theaters to watch the first 2 episodes of Inhumans.
Oh no.
And I'd say great misfortune because... So let me start off by saying I'm a massive, massive fan of the Inhumans property in the comic books, as well as how they've been treated in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., another Marvel TV, ABC TV Marvel show. But this was not good. There was a lot of things wrong with it. I wanted so bad for it to be good. I wanted so bad to put myself out there and just defend it on its merits against waves of negative criticism, but it's just very, very bad. I don't want to rant about it because it will literally make me angry. But I'm working on writing a little blog post about it, about why it's bad and what could have been done about it. But I've had to rewrite it so many times because it turns into a 3-page tirade every time. So, but yeah, that's what I've been watching lately. It was still a cool experience just going to see, a TV show on the big screen, but it's definitely not worth your money if you're considering it. Wait till it comes out on ABC and then make a decision for yourself, but watch it for free on cable.
Cool.
Would you say Lockjaw is a positive about it?
Lockjaw is definitely a positive. It's really hard to mess up an adorable, gigantic English bulldog that can teleport, but they did do a good job with it. Unfortunately, I think that it's going to be similar to the dragons on Game of Thrones, where having him on screen takes so much of the CG budget that they're going to try to avoid having him on screen as often as possible. But he's adorable, and I want a dog that big in my life, whether or not in teleport.
Nice.
That'd be awesome.
Good to know. So kind of a bum. We all know that you are one of the resident Marvel fanatics on the podcast. So I guess we'll definitely probably come back and talk about it when Inhumans comes out on TV. And do you know when that is off the top of your head?
Yeah, September 22nd it airs.
Oh, nice.
On ABC.
So super about very soon. Cool.
Yeah, like 3 weeks.
There you go. And I am Warren. I'll be your host this evening. I am currently sipping on a couple different things. I was trying to do something a little bit different this time around, so that I know, much like MOCHA, Mike, and a lot of people who are a bit newer to wine, it also kind of turns them off because a lot of people don't really like buying wines that's kind of expensive, even anything above like $10, $15, and it kind of turns you off of it. So what I've been trying to do is really go out and find a lot of wines that are under $6, $7, $8, and I have been doing that for the last couple of weeks right now. And I've gotten 2 bottles of wine that were total under $8 from TJ Maxx, Trader Joe's. There you go. TJ Maxx has wine now.
They threw in a pair of pants.
Yeah, it was BOGO. I had to. So I got these
$4 bottle of wine with your Billabong shorts.
right. I got these 2 bottles of red blends, of course, and I think blends are probably the easiest to drink, especially if you're just getting into drinking wine. One's called the Plow and Stars, or the Plow and Stars. I guess it's the Plow and Stars. My bad. And the other one is called the Granite Coast and Vineyards, and I'm interested to see which one I should select. Guys, input.
Is there a description?
It is. So, harvested from carefully curated selection of premier vineyards in California, Plow and Stars captures the essence of California red in one ripe, juicy, delicious blend. That's one. The rugged coastline carved out by the relentless force of the wild Pacific Ocean is a hallmark of California's central coast. The proximity of our vineyards to the sea is a cool marine air ensures our grapes ripen slowly, evenly, develop ripe, concentrated fruit flavors while retaining an ideal level of acidity. It's pretty good.
I mean, I'm going to go ahead and say...
Coast one.
Coast?
I like that description. Granite Coast, yeah.
Granite Coast?
See, I like stargazing. I also like plowing, so I'm gonna go for the plow and star.
Well, I'm gonna go with Megan's just because she likes the actual label. So thank you very much, Megan. And we're gonna try the plow and stars this time around. And this is literally this is a $4 bottle, $4 bottle from Trader Joe's. So definitely check it out. As I open up this beautiful, beautiful nectar, I've been watching a couple different shows. I know one thing that me and Briley are gonna talk about just here in a moment is gonna be The Tick, and we found that on Amazon Prime, and we actually heard and caught wind of that last year during their pilot season. That's right. So we'll talk about that in a second. But I am super interested to hear. Have you guys heard of or seen anything about The Night Manager?
I hear it is amazing, and it's won a lot of awards. I've never got around to watching it, but it has two of the best actors in the world right now in it: Benedict Cumberbatch and Loki.
No, so close.
Loki and Hugh Laurie.
Yeah, there you go.
There we go.
I was like,
wait, hold on. If you're gonna go with a Loki reference, then it's Loki and Doctor Strange.
Yeah,
it has.
That's not it either.
Channing Tatum and the Australian twin.
This has Loki and it has House in it. Loki and House.
Loki and House. Yeah.
Not even close. Anyways, so I remember I was watching the Golden Globes this past year, I believe, and I think this was just collecting and picking up a bunch of awards, and both Tom Hiddleston and Hugh Laurie both had won an award for it, but I just never got a chance to get around to it. I've been really delving into a lot of Amazon Prime, whether it's like their HD or their 4K content, but it just feels like they have a lot of content that I think a lot of people will appreciate, and they're actually kind of get some stuff from it. It's not too mainstream. I'm only at the second episode. I'm almost about to finish the second episode, but man, there are some great performances already in one episode. They're an hour long. I think the first season is a total of maybe 8 to 10 episodes. But it is very complex. The characters are all complex and it's different, and you just really get so much information. It's a show you really have to pay attention to, and I find myself wanting to watch the show by myself so that nobody's like either bothering me or talking to me, because it really starts immediately and it just ramps up and just keeps going. And it's actually really prescient. It talks about things that is happening in today's society, like it may not be in America, but in the world. So that's The Night Manager. I'm definitely probably going to get back on here and give you like a small recap of when I'm done with the season, but it is a very easy, but it's a very intense watch, and I thoroughly enjoy the acting in it. So definitely it's a great show. And I'm pumped to talk about The Tick. I'm actually going to toss this over to Brylan, and I want to hear your thoughts on it, because we talked about this last year a little bit, and we were super pumped, and now that the entire season is out of The Tick, and I'm wondering, what your thoughts on that, and if you actually seen the original version back in the 90s of The Tick.
Oh yeah, like this is what The Tick was. I never read the comic books, but The Tick was one of my go-to Saturday morning cartoons growing up as a kid. One of my favorite episodes of TV ever is The Tick versus the Tick, where he actually fights a guy named Barry who's wearing a tick suit, and it was a really good spoof on the superhero genre, and it also had interesting cast of villains and side characters, and it was really cool to see this villain's motivations. It wasn't just about like blowing up the moon; it was about writing their name on the moon. So it was always like very tongue-in-cheek about how they approached everything, and they had some very intriguing characters like Chairface Chippendale, who actually had a chair for a head, and it was just an interesting visual element to it. When the Patrick Warburton Tick came out, I never really got around to watching it, so the cartoon was what I watched. But I was pretty excited to get back into the Tick. And when I watched the first episode during pilot season, I wasn't quite sure how to look at it. I felt kind of weird. I was like, it has the elements of the Tick, but it's kind of dark. It's kind of going into some very disturbing places, like almost like they first start with Arthur kind of acting like he's a mental patient. He was a mental patient just because of traumatic event in his life. But as I watched the entire series for this first season, I loved it. It captures the heart of what the Tick is, and bends it into different ways. It does go to dark elements, but it reminds me a lot about a show that I love, that I watched all 5 seasons of it, that I think didn't really get its due, which was Wilfred. If you ever watched that.
Oh god, that show was so good.
Yeah, and
super underrated.
Yeah, the Tick and Arthur relationship is kind of like Wilfred and what is the Hobbit's name?
Elijah Wood.
Elijah Wood. Yeah, that their relationship. It's kind of a very similar relationship, and it's really cool to see that they didn't bring back the characters that are beloved in the Tick lore, like Deflator Mouse or Chairface Chippendale, but they brought in characters that kind of work as well, like Mrs. Lint, and Overkill is fucking amazing.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, Overkill is one of the best vigilantes ever created, I think, just because of his attitude towards everything. He just thinks everybody's an asshole when he's the actual asshole. But I got to give it out to Jackie Earle Haley for playing. What is the main villain's name? I forget. It's Mr.
Terror.
The Terror. Yeah, because he's like a motivational speaker mixed with your the best dad ever, but all for villainy.
Yes.
He'll have things where he talks about well, I know you did wrong because you weren't evil enough for it. You gotta go out there and be evil. And he's just it's good to see him approach it with a positive light towards his villain underlings, try to encourage him to be more evil.
Yeah. Is he like Bizarro Tony Robbins?
He is a lot. Yeah, you can definitely see that. And he has a very unique voice as well, which I think Jackie Earle Haley's always good about bringing out those weird voices that actually capture a character. So I definitely recommend this first season. I thought it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I mean, I just thoroughly enjoyed. I enjoyed the first episode in the pilot, and I really had a good time with it. I think when it started and I saw that, and I'm like, oh man, I like these. That's why I like Amazon, because I feel like they are kind of pushing it just a little bit into some darker areas. Not saying that Netflix and Hulu and HBO is not doing that, but it felt like they were at least trying to do something a little bit differently. And we don't know, especially if you're brand new to this entire world, because I don't really I remember a bit of the cartoon. I think I watched a couple of them, and I remember the Patrick Warburton because I thought it was kind of funny, but I didn't quite get what's happening. So now that I'm a little bit older and they're giving you this, this kid, and this guy now grows up, has been stalking his father's killer essentially, and wants to prove to the world that he's not crazy, he's been right the entire time, and he's dealing with a PTSD, a really traumatic sort of event. But and then randomly all of a sudden this superhero comes up that's called the Tick, and this is guy who's dressed up as a costume, but he's not entirely sure. We sort of find out, and there's a very interesting sort of surreal moment. He's like, oh, I don't know if I have a costume or I'm just born, if I'm just naked. I don't know. And it was this really funny dialogue that they kind of put into that. But it was also very interesting because they don't quite give you all the answers. Arthur actually starts to develop a tick in his eye, a twitch in his eye. And so for a long time, you don't know if the tick is real or not. You don't know if Arthur's embodied him or not. Then later on, you find out different things. No spoilers, of course. You start finding out kind of different things, but in the end, you're still not quite sure. You're still not his sisters doesn't necessarily kind of help him, and she's trying not to enable him. And there's a support system that's out there, and they're not as helpful. And the only person that's is literally the anti he is the Tony Robbins. Wait, the Tick is Tony Robbins in this show. Oh my god, I just realized that. Right. Yeah, you said Bizarro. Yeah. I was like, wait, no, he is. And I think there was a beautiful, and I really, really enjoy this moment of just the dialogue alone. There's a scene that Arthur's flying and trying to learn how to fly with these wings, and Dot and the Tick are driving. And he's telling him, no, you can do this, and really talking about some really spiritual sayings, and really trying to just pump him as much as possible, where Dot's on the other side and she's controlling, right? Physically, she's controlling the car. She's actually driving as she's been controlling Arthur's life and telling him like no, no, no. Whereas then you got the Tick who's not driving, who's trying to let him go free. He sticks his head up out the window and says, feel free. You need to embrace it. You can do this. And just that
Destiny
scene
is on your side.
And in like the way that he like really encompasses Destiny, I'm like, it's a very powerful character. I think it's a very I'm scared that it may not be, received very well, just because it's on Amazon, and Amazon's not even on Apple TV, right? So it may not necessarily be seen all the time. But B, it's also like very quirky, very weird, very satirical, especially about our feature film that we're going to talk about today a little bit of. It is making fun of itself, and it is making fun of like different things. And they're not trying to take it seriously. Like there's a woman who has like electrostatic power, and she's in her lair that was their ex-husband, and it's just hilarious.
Whose name's Chad? He's like a Chad bro, dude.
Yeah, it's so hilarious. Who drinks almond milk, and it's hilarious. So I mean, they're really. I really enjoy the show. I really hope people go out and like watch it because like obviously a lot of people have Amazon Prime. It's free. Kind of binge it. It's very easy to watch, but it definitely gives you a lot of different TV that's just not out there. And I just thoroughly enjoy it, and I really hope that a lot of people kind of get out there and just watch the pilot, just watch the first episode, because I guarantee you're going to be like, I need to keep watching it just to see where it happens. Mocha, what do you got something?
Yeah, I just wanted to add to the fact that, you're right, Amazon is definitely at a disadvantage compared to other streaming services like Hulu and Netflix that have a bit more of a spread in terms of how they can engage their customers. But they are trying to do a lot of big things, whether it's, pushing forward content that is a bit more risky, like The Tick and how they're handling some of the content in there. Yeah. But also with this movie that we're going to review tonight, Logan Lucky, Amazon has a deal with a deal set up with them where after the movie is done with its theatrical release, it will come out on Amazon Prime Video.
Oh, good.
So they're like, they made a deal where they're bypassing the whole wait for the DVD stage, and they're just putting it on their platform first. So
good.
Like, I'll be honest, I'm only watching things that are on Amazon Prime Video because I have an Amazon Prime account. That's the more important thing to me. But more power to them. They're definitely the T-Mobile in this streaming video war. But they're rising to the challenge. They're pulling out all the stops and trying to do innovative things with their content. So more power to them. I hope things work out for them.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think I read somewhere that Tick's already been renewed for season 2. So
good.
It's definitely garnered an audience. Yeah. I just hope they give them a little bit more budget just to make things look a little prettier.
Yeah, it was interesting because I think at the time, I was watching some really, really bad movies this past weekend. I'm not even going to bring up the movies. It was one called Samurai Cop and the other one called Samurai Cop 2. Thank you, Andrew Abbott. Thank you, Andrew Abbott, for that. I hate your guts.
Wow.
That sounds like an Abbott recommendation.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing. Not only was I watching it, but he had like a good 8 or 9 people all watching this movie. And we're like, why are we still watching this movie? We finished both of them, mind you. We finished both these movies. Anyways, the budget, you can definitely tell the budget was not there. And it was like bare bones, but it still looked good in a lot of these things that it did. Like even the actual character, like the character of Overkill, looked great. Like I thought he looked like, is it Overkill or Overwatch? What is it? Overkill. Overkill. Yeah, he looked great. Like with the eyes and like the robot and like that. I thought that was pretty cool. I'm like, I was kind of surprised that looked as good. But then there's other stuff that I'm like, all right, that looks kind of bad. But it's whatever. Yeah. It's okay.
They even make a joke about the Tick suit where Arthur says, like, you look different today. And Tick's just like, oh, thank you for noticing.
Yeah. It's going to be, I'm pumped about it. And even, talking about, I'm going to echo something before Mocha said, if this upcoming Thursday, for all the sports fans, Amazon Prime Video lets you stream the game live. It's Packers versus Chicago Bears. Which,
get out of here.
I don't know if they did that last year, or I know Twitter had tried something like the year before. They're probably going to come back and do something, but the fact that you're telling me that everybody, as long as you have an internet connection, now can watch live sports without any, like, you don't need anything for it, I think that's very, very powerful.
That's awesome.
I really hope it just doesn't go down, like, during the streaming, right? I'm wondering, like, the buffering and stuff like that, but if it works for them, I really hope that more and more people get a chance to kind of watch some of these great, great shows that's on Amazon, Man in the High Castle, Red Oaks, like Fleabag, which a show I'd like a lot, Goliath. I mean, these things are all over the place. It's going a bit of a brief pause and a brief intermission, and then we'll see you soon for the full review of Logan Lucky. We are excited. We are pumped to talk about Logan Lucky, full feature film. Like we said, this was actually reviewed and requested from our Twitter, so thank you so much for all of our Twitter followers and all of our friends and feel free to follow us at _DAFP, at _Down in Front Podcast. I'm going to toss it over to Brylan and say, hey, Brylan, tell me some things you liked about Logan Lucky.
Yeah, so I found this movie to be an enjoyable Hickville mix of Ocean's 11 and Little Miss Sunshine. It is definitely a heist film that Steven Soderbergh has done. He's done this multiple times before, so he's got a little bit of a method behind how he likes to build out these like quirky characters that are nice and fun to be around with, and then they pull off like the most elaborate robbery scheme you'll ever see on film. And even with this, like what's really cool about it is like it's set with these characters from West Virginia, from small towns where they did mining jobs and were in the military and everything, very blue collar environments. But they're no idiots either. So even though like their plan might be 10 steps that just say, do the job, don't be stupid, have a backup, that the plan they pull off here is probably one of the most elaborate plans I've seen about robbing anything.
Yes.
And just adding NASCAR to it just adds another layer of hickness to it. And I use hickness in a positive light. I think it's something that adds a lot of character to these to this movie. Some of the casts that I thought really stood out. One, I'll just have to say Daniel Craig's Joe Bang. Seeing Daniel Craig do an American accent, especially like a very small town American accent, is one of the oddest but most satisfying and enjoyable things I've seen in my life.
Absolutely.
And it's really cool to see his character have like these little things, like he eats hard-boiled eggs with fake salt. Prepackaged hard-boiled eggs are probably one of the grossest snacks you can have.
Out of a vending machine.
Out of a vending machine.
Ahead.
I would never trust that. But
go ahead, C7. What? Like?
Yeah, watching him eat those is just like, I'm kind of enamored by how sick and gross this is, but pretty funny at the same time. And I just like, he's that guy that's like just a little bit smarter than everybody else. Like when he's talking about how his bomb's going to work, he doesn't want to call it a bomb. It's science. And he has to explain to him how mixing sugar with glue and gummy bears is actually going to create an explosion for them, and it works. It's actually really cool. I
love that cut scene for like jump cut because he's like talking about it and he's like, it's science, and he looks up and they're like, then they cut to him with the chalk like in a heist. He's explaining the science of how you actually kind of mix this to like break it down, and I'm like, that is like some good comedic sort of bits. There's some great sort of parts to it that it's just funny, and it's even better that you have these three actors who all just like toss that in at one point. I'm like, man, that's such good comedy. That's really funny. You have some physical actionness in there, as well as you're explaining something so ridiculous to the point where something so ridiculous that they're doing. I think that moment really, really worked for me.
Yeah, and I think he was also the one that actually told his brothers, like, gave him the 6 jars and said, put 2 in 3 and put 3 in 4 and then run. And just blew up the generator. I even liked, there were some surprising, like, supporting cast that popped up in this movie. Like, the British, Max, the British, like, energy drink spokesman / mogul. I did not know that was Seth MacFarlane.
Oh yeah,
that blew my mind. And
you found that out after the fact?
I found that after the fact.
Awesome.
And I found him to be like a really hilarious asshole that just got what was coming to him every step of the way. And along with him, Sebastian Stan's very brief moment of being a NASCAR driver that finds clean living. His little montage about like how he's taking care of his body and just how his body is this software, or how everything that goes into his body is this software now.
So good.
And it's phenomenal because I've spoken to people that act just like that in real life. And just the ramifications of him taking one energy drink that makes him lose the race is hilarious.
Makes his OS crash.
Yeah.
Makes
I'm
his
crashing.
OS crash.
I'm crashing. Oh my gosh, so funny. I thoroughly enjoyed that entire sort of montage of, because you sit there, he's like, well, you're just eating. Like, it doesn't look like you're doing anything. Well, I don't understand what this software. Oh, it's food? Yeah. Food is what I call software. Wait, hold on. What? I just love how they just enjoy the sexual, that role.
Yeah. I also liked Adam Driver a lot as the younger Logan brother. He's like a army vet that came back and lost his arm. And so he's actually got like a very matter-of-fact attitude. He's probably the smartest one besides Joe Bang going into this. And he actually has been through a lot, and he actually will admit, like, yeah, life's tough, but also at the same time, he's like, you know what, you just got to push forward and just keep on going. And even when he doubts himself, that he finds a way to overcome that. And I thought that's really cool because I haven't really seen Adam Driver in many things besides Star Wars and his spoofs on Star Wars on SNL. But he continues to impress me every single time he takes on a role.
Nice.
Also liked Riley Keough as Melly Logan, the sister. She's beautiful, and she's kind of played like a stereotype, like, girl that my friends and I thought was like the catch is like the hot girl that drives the muscle car that knows how to drive stick. Mm-hmm. That was always the girl we went after. And what surprised me a lot is I kept on looking at her. I was like, I know her from somewhere. I've heard her name somewhere. I've seen her in something. I looked at her IMDb page. I haven't seen any of her movies. I was like, how do I know this person? It's like, she looks very familiar. And then I read a little bit more, and I realized she is Elvis Presley's granddaughter.
Oh,
she
wow.
has like the same Elvis Presley chin. And I was like, that's how she looks very familiar.
She looks like her grandma.
Yeah.
Aside from the chin. I think she does.
Aside from the chin. Yeah, the chin. She's kind of got that Elvis chin.
Nice. I didn't even know that.
Yeah. And... lost my notes. And just the hilarity that's in this movie. It's very off kilter. It's very like blended in to be kind of real. Like you would probably experience a funny moment like this, or a frustrating moment that you can see in a humorous light. They have probably the best Game of Thrones joke ever put on film.
Yes.
Easily.
There's a whole scene where these group of prisoners have actually locked down this cafeteria, and they're making demands, and one of their demands is to get a copy of A Dance with Dragons in the prison library, and they also want Winds of Winter, Song of Spring, and the warden who's played by Dwight Yoakam, who's always awesome in pretty much anything he does. If you've ever seen Sling Blade, he's fantastic in that. He's telling them, like, we can get you A Dance with Dragons, but Winds of Winter still hasn't come out, and A Song of Spring has not come out yet. And the prisoners just go, bullshit, we don't believe you. That was supposed to be out a couple of months ago. And he's like, he feels helpless because he's just reading off the Wikipedia article, like, saying, according to this, it still hasn't come out. George R. R. Martin hasn't gotten back to getting his book back. It looks like there were some TV production issues, and it was like using that real fast
so
life
good
just to build up a humorous moment, which is fantastic. I was right there just feeling just the same thing that the prisoners are feeling, because I've been there when they announced that it was going to be delayed. Yes, I was like, bullshit, don't do this to me.
Oh my god! The prisoners actually counter him by saying, "Oh, this guy came into lockup knowing all these things that happened after Dance of Dragons," and the warden's like, "Well, it seems that the TV show has gotten past the books, but without George R. R. Martin's direction." And it was like I was dying that entire time. I was cracking up.
Yeah, they also do a great job of breaking the fourth wall in clever ways. Like Hilary Swank's FBI character, I think she's like a total spoof of Tommy Lee Jones' character from The Fugitive, in a way. And she even has a moment that, made me laugh out loud, where she's talking about, like, what events have occurred, like, they can't find any suspects in this robbery, they can't find anybody to say that they saw anybody happen around there that was strange or suspicious. Sebastian Stan's NASCAR driver won't corroborate Seth MacFarlane's character story, and she just stands there and looks around. It's like, I hate it when cases are all nice and tidy and closed pretty perfectly, kind of like the outcome of this story. Just like having that little tongue-in-cheek moment about just making the whole movie itself just adds a little extra fun to it. Also, like how they use their humor and clever dialogue to talk about just social elements that people may be experiencing in their day-to-day basis as well. Just like Channing Tatum's character, we first meet him, he actually gets fired from his job just because one of the board of directors saw him walking with a limp one day and looked into it, and it looked like since he did not declare that as a previous condition, he is contractually not able to work for them because he did not declare that as something that was issued, and that could raise their insurance rates, and they did not want that. They did not want to have that financial hardship on the business, so they fire him. They say, "Hey, sorry, but you didn't declare this," and that's something that you can actually have. You see people actually be affected by day to day, and I like that it wasn't just explain like what a pre-existing condition is. It was actually part of the story, part of the environment that was going on with that. So I really appreciated that as well.
Cool. Well, I'm super pumped. I'm really excited to talk about that Game of Thrones, especially we have it, because I was absolutely in stitches in the entire theater, They made some great arguments. I'm like, those inmates made some absolutely great arguments, and I think it was more along the lines of George R. R. Martin, what the F? Like, literally, what the F, bro? Like, this is on you now. So, hopefully this rallies him so that he can actually release Winds of Winter this year. Who knows? I doubt it, but who knows? Mocha, talk to me about what you liked about the movie.
Yeah, I agree with Brylan on a lot of the different points that he's brought up. I feel like this movie lacked a bit of originality in terms of its plot, but aside from that, its characters were absolutely delightful. It was funny because it kind of felt a lot of the times that I was watching a heist movie made by the Coen brothers, and maybe that had to do with the fact that everyone had really convincing Southern accents, but it was just really interesting seeing all the different characters interact with each other, whether it was the Logan siblings, or Channing Tatum with his daughter, who that little child actress was absolutely precious and did such a good job the entire way through.
Amazing.
Like Jimmy Logan's angry conversations with his ex-wife or his ex-lover, whatever their situation was. Just every time there were humans interacting with humans, it felt really authentic. It felt really real in terms of the dialogue and how they approached it. And I really appreciated that out of this movie. And that's something that, I didn't necessarily see a lot out of Soderbergh's other films, his other Ocean's movies. Those were more focused on just like the heist itself and the excitement around it. But this movie felt a lot like a personal, individual human story with the heist wrapped in. And I dug it. I really enjoyed that. It was also really self-aware. This film, there are multiple times where characters in the film, background characters, refer to the situation as Ocean's 7-Eleven because the money was returned at a convenience store, or the hillbilly heist. And it was really enjoyable seeing Soderbergh having a little fun at his own expense in that regard. The positive cast interactions or the positive character interactions come from the fact that a solid cast. I mean, Channing Tatum hasn't done any wrong as far as I'm concerned. Any movie he's been in, Daniel Craig, like Brian said, was fantastic. I've never seen him outside of a James Bond movie, so I don't know if he's had the opportunity to speak in an American accent before. But he was great. Like, he was solid and on point throughout it, and I thought, like, in his character was just really fun and interesting. All the characters were, whether his hillbilly brothers who were a bit more uneducated, Adam Driver with his kind of stoic, like, almost PTSD, individual who had come back from a war and had lost his arm and was just kind of really deadpan with how he delivered all of his lines and had all of his conversations. He still really had a really strong presence in the movie, and it was great seeing these two characters, Channing Tatum and Adam Driver, who are brothers, showing the kind of instinctual bond that makes for really good brothers on film. One of the early scenes in the film is Seth MacFarlane's character making fun of Adam Driver because he doesn't have an arm, and before they can even make really pointed comments about Adam Driver, Channing Tatum comes to his brother's defense. And the moment Channing Tatum starts fighting with Seth MacFarlane and his crew, Adam Driver just grabs a bottle of liquor, shoves a rag in it, goes right outside, grabs a brick, breaks their window, and throws a Molotov cocktail into it without even a second thought. And it's just, I love seeing mischievous brothers, or at least like hoodlum brothers, like acting in sync like that. It was really, really enjoyable to watch.
Yeah. Doug liked Adam Driver's actions a lot just because never did it feel like it was something that was happening because of rage or anger. It was just like, I'm just going to do the most matter-of-fact thing right now.
Yeah, absolutely. He was so kind of driven by just what made sense for the moments, even if what made sense wasn't necessarily the smartest thing to do. Yeah. And it played off well with Channing Tatum's character, who, while he wasn't wildly emotional, he was definitely a much more emotion-driven character than his brother was. And so they had this nice play off one another. The sense of humor throughout the film was great. Brylan, you went into detail about the Game of Thrones joke, or the Game of Thrones joke, which I thought was fantastic. But like the laughs were pretty nonstop, and a lot of times there were moments where a joke was made that wasn't laugh out loud funny, but was still funny within the greater context. And I was really surprised. I didn't know what to expect going into this film, and being bombarded with humor from these characters was not what I expected, and it came off really well. Everyone was great in it. Channing Tatum was fantastic. America's sweetheart. Every movie he's in, he makes better. Looks like there may be some disagreement amidst Down in Front podcast guys, because I'm getting some funny looks.
Movie?
Tell me a movie that Channing Tatum has made worse by being in.
Jupiter Ascending.
No, he's actually one of the best parts of Jupiter Ascending.
Yeah, that was a shit movie, and he was good in it.
He was one of the worst parts in Jupiter Ascending. After Mila Kunis. We don't have to get into that. We're not going to get into this at all. You cannot defend that movie on anything, so proceed.
Maybe that movie will be our review for April Fools.
No.
Who knows?
Jesus, no.
Yeah. And I want people to just understand that Channing Tatum is a great actor. That he adds a lot to his work, especially his physicality when he comes to work. I mean, if no one's seen him in like Magic Mike or Step Up to the Streets, which he did many moons ago, he's a professional trained dancer. And he actually adds a lot of physicality to his roles. And you can actually see him just change his posture or his gait to actually add a little bit more extra on the screen to what that character is. Like this character being a little bit more heavy set, walking around with a limp, a little hunched over, shows that this guy's been working his ass off for his family.
Okay.
Yeah. He did have a dad bod for this movie, which is not a detraction. But yeah, a lot of this movie, a lot of what really struck me as positive about this movie just comes back to how authentic it felt. Even though the situation they were in was really ridiculous and required a significant amount of suspension of disbelief at times, seeing these characters just talk to one another, especially with Channing Tatum's relationship with his daughter. So in the film, I'm assuming his ex-wife, or at least the mother of his child, has custody over his daughter. and he is a really good father. He spends a lot of quality time with her, but is a different person and raising her in a different way than her mother and her stepfather are. And I can probably say it's because I don't think my family listens to this podcast at all, but that's really reminiscent of some relationships that I've seen and within my own family in terms of, a father, not this isn't my parents specifically, but a father with a young toddler daughter who is estranged from their mother, and just like his interactions with the mom and being like angry and constantly fighting with her, but then switching over to like the hey baby mode when his daughter comes onto the screen and doing whatever he can to be positive around her, despite the fact that Katie Holmes is still throwing him daggers, was just super authentic. And whether it was a combination of the writing and just those actors' deliveries, it felt real. And honestly, I could have watched this same movie if it was an emotional relationship drama as opposed to a funny heist. Yeah. And I think the characters would have worked just as well, and that's a huge win to the writing, because they gave us a fantastical situation, this big heist, amidst what was a very human drama. Yeah. So big shout out to this movie. It was really fun to watch.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, I think the biggest thing that I loved about this movie was I just had a lot of fun watching this, and I was super bummed. I am not a type of person who miss parts of movies, but I actually had to miss a good chunk of the movie. I'm not entirely sure how much, but I definitely did miss a good point. But it was still something that was very, very enjoyable to see. And it was also something that you can still necessarily kind of keep up of what's happening, and I really kind of took my time and try to piece together and figure some things out. And there's some characters that I missed their introductions, but their reintroductions back into when I seen them first, I immediately knew, I was oh, okay, I can kind of piece together some things that had happened. So I think that was a very, very he had talked about, Mike talked about the actual writing. I think that's another good point to say, that doesn't matter when this character comes on screen or on stage, it's actually really good. We talked about the children acting, and the little girl, her name's Farrah McKenzie, was absolutely amazing. I thought she was just awesome. It was a very honest approach to doing it, but it's also very silly, and pageant living and pageant life is that is life down there, and I know from some people, so that's all she necessarily was going for. And it really kind of choked me up a bit, like MOCHA was talking about, there's these comedic beats and there's comedic moments. She's doing her hair, she has a spray tan, right? She's going to the tanning bed, she's doing all this stuff to sing this song, and she goes up and she's going to sing Rihanna. She goes up on stage, she has the umbrella, she's going to sing Rihanna's Umbrella, and she goes onto the microphone and says, this is my daddy's favorite song, and ends up singing John Denver's Country Road, or is it called West Virginia?
Country Road, Take Me Home.
Yeah, Take Me Home, that's right. And so I'm that turned, that right there within a matter of seconds, turned from a very funny moment of this will be hilarious to see, but that performance from that actress was that was way better than anything Ty Simpkins can do. Come on, step your game up, man. Step your game up. You have no excuse. Anyways, that was great. I mean, that was a very honest approach to that actual sort of character, and she didn't she was in it a lot, but it was very simple of what she wants to do as a little kid in this hectic and crazy environment, and all this chaos is happening around her. But much like MOCHA was talking about, they made sure that she wasn't necessarily a part of it, and I really enjoy that. Although people looked at that family as being pretty negative, or people made fun of that family a lot, and they got into a lot of trouble, but they made sure that she wasn't necessarily a part of that.
That's an interesting moment they show, because they bring up, especially Adam Driver's character brings up this whole Logan curse thing, that they're never going to have good things. You see Channing Tatum's character miss previous events, the rehearsals for her pageant and everything, and then at the very end he actually pulls through and he's there for her. And I think it definitely tells, if he didn't show up, she would probably done Rihanna and been goofy as hell.
Yeah, right.
But since he actually shows up for her, it gives her a sign he cares. We have this connection. Yeah. I'm going to do what's right and what's from the heart. Yeah. And that is a very emotional moment.
And he also shows up not only for his daughter, but he shows up for his family and friends and the people who risk their lives for something that's it was big. That's important for this actual heist. So I do kind of enjoy that for a little bit. I love the
even people that didn't even know they were in on it.
Yeah, right. And that's another great part too, because it was like call the baker, and I was like, I missed that. So I was like, I don't know what that is, but you start piecing it together. I was like, man, that's awesome. Like that's a good thing to be there for the people who may not necessarily know, or hey, I've done wrong to this person that they don't know I've done wrong to. So I at least want to say I appreciate what you've necessarily done. It is technically stealing, but anyways, we're not gonna get into the moral compass of that. I love the fake out in the audience though of like you can't really trust the narrator of the actual movie. There, and he even said it like, oh, we're only gonna tell them what we're only gonna tell them just
what they need to know.
What they need to know.
What we want them to know.
What they want to know, but that's not. They weren't talking about the brothers. They were talking about the audience at that point, and I think that was really, really fun, really, really cool. It was obviously we saw it coming. Yeah, we've seen all the Ocean's movies, so I kind of saw it coming. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. But it was still like nice to be like, oh, that's interesting. Like I didn't necessarily know where the cockroaches with the fingernail painting comes from. Like that didn't I wasn't necessarily sure what that's happening there. But I thought that was like very effective and very very enjoyable.
They use that to find which of the pneumatic tubes was actually going into the vault.
Ah, okay.
And so once they came as the exterminators and found like, oh, it's the pink bugs, they knew exactly what pipe to drop the bomb in.
Got it.
Which is pretty brilliant.
Yeah, I mean that was fun. I even thought like so there's like obviously there's things that I missed. I'm like I mean I didn't really need to know that, but still pretty cool. I also like even going off of that Game of Thrones scenes with the cell inmate. I thought the funniest thing about that, not even having a backstory of the warden, was the fact that he's like, this jail doesn't have fires. This jail doesn't have like riots. No, you don't know what you're doing. We'll be fine. Like don't worry about it. Like there's no way we're not gonna do this. And I thought that was funny. As like shit's going down in your jail cell, you're gonna sit there as like we're fine. We'll get through it. Don't worry about it. So that was like kind of pretty funny. Even to the point where all the firemen comes in and they just see a little trash can on fire, and a little gag of just one hit from the fire extinguisher, and they're like, really? That's it? I thought that was kind of funny. So yeah, I just enjoyed the movie. I'm bummed. I'm probably gonna watch it again so I can get the entirety of it. But I also just had a lot of fun. I feel like I didn't need to watch it, but I definitely do want to watch it, just so that I can actually have like an honest opinion on everything. Because there's things that I necessarily missed. Even I enjoyed the Hilary Swank character because the first time I saw her, she popped up walking into the vault that's already been robbed, and I'm like, oh, Hilary Swank's in this movie. That's fun. I like that. But I just love her like plotting at the end, and it'd be funny just to see her looking at everybody who like she knows what all they did. I thought that was kind of very funny, and I'm just glad that he can make fun of his own movies, his own successful movies. He can still make fun of them. For hopefully makes another successful movie of saying that that was good, but I know that's pretty cheesy and he really can't do that, so I'm gonna make fun of what I just did, and I think that was pretty effective. So we enjoy this movie. I'm glad that we enjoy this movie, but we probably don't enjoy everything about this movie. So I'm interested to hear about some things that Brylan, what just didn't work for you?
So I would say that my biggest criticism was that the movie felt a little bit too long and the pacing was pretty off in this movie. It takes a while for the heist elements to start coming together, and and the pacing just feels like that they weren't really sure where to put the pieces to make it run as smooth as possible. Like Hilary Swank's character, she's not introduced until the final third of the movie. Like, and you think that the movie's about to end, then all of a sudden you see Hilary Swank come on the screen and they introduce her and they actually build her character and she's investigating what happened. And they're even like have her character at the end like almost set up for a sequel. And it's like, it's kind of interesting. I mean, she's a great actress and everything, but I think it would have been better if you knew a little bit about like her character, especially at a huge event like the Coca-Cola 600. And if anybody doesn't know that much about NASCAR, I mean, this is a event where almost 300,000 people go to the stadium alone, let alone millions and millions of people watch it on TV, and it's and you'd think they would have some type of federal oversight or security on the money when an event that huge is happening. They also have also think it just stuck too close to the Ocean's 11 formula of doing like kind of the bait and switch on the audience, just showing you what they want to show you, kind of how they said that we're only going to let them know what we want them to know. Kind of did that to the audience too, where you have all these elaborate elements happening in this bank heist, and then you still don't see all the elaborate elements that have been happening behind the scenes. That they have this whole second part where Melly's grabbing almost half the money that actually was robbed out of it and holding it in a safe place. So they do have money that they robbed, but they made sure they got enough back to the racing committee just so they know, like, okay, we've got kind of enough where we can write down the rest if we need to. My other biggest criticism would be for this movie is there's a lot of fun moments we have with pretty much all the characters in this movie, but we really don't get enough time to actually start to care about these characters.
Yeah.
And I feel like everything is kind of surface level, that there could have been a lot more to these characters, and you're just left wondering what else was allowing them to, what else motivated them to think a certain way or actually enact out how they did. You just wanted to, I just felt like I wanted to learn more about who these characters were and feel more connected to them, so I had more vested interest in what they were doing and why they were doing it.
Yeah. I mean, you mentioned a couple of points, Brylan, that I do want to mention is, I think it would have been super helpful to start this movie off a little bit of these characters. It's silly, right? They can pull a 10 years later. Crap. What's the camp thing we talked about?
Wet Hot American Summer.
Wet Hot. So they can pull like a Wet Hot, right? And they can start this movie off with a flashback of like high school. And they can talk about like at one point when Channing Tatum's jacked, and they can talk about just a couple of these stories from high school and how these same group of people started in high school, and you have like the nurse who's like traveling around. That was kind of funny to tie that story in, but you also have Hilary Swank, who may have been in love, or like the Logans did her wrong in some way or embarrassed her in high school or something. So she has like this personal vendetta or something along the lines of like introducing like some of these characters, what we have, and then you do a flash forward when the movie starts, and then you start filling in the gaps of what happened in between, just so that you give her a bit of motivation, because I can definitely understand why the Hilary Swank character, it's a huge shift of what happened here, and literally Channing Tatum's character disappears for a while of what's happening there. So I thought that was very strange at that part. And I definitely agree with you on it. It was a little too quick to kind of put that in, and I think you said something about the pacing also, and I think they could have just taken out some things that didn't necessarily need to be there, instead of just like rushing and speeding things to kind of make it all like in a tight little bow and says that's good, or like flip it the other way around and say keep the pacing exactly how you're there. Let the main characters, the Logans think that they're winning, and in the end they're like, no, we caught you, and this is all the stuff that we have, you're going to jail, right? Like that also would have been funny, because then this would have been a play on a play, and now the audience is like, oh, that's hilarious, that's really funny if somebody's been in on it the entire time, or something, make it a little bit different, because it was definitely too much on the nose of, I kind of know how this is going to end, and I think everybody in the movie was like, well, we kind of know how this is going to end. So I can definitely kind of agree with you. That just would have made like a couple things that would have made that better, I think.
Yeah, because they kind of in the movie where it feels like, even though they feel like they got away with a brilliant plan, that the Logan curse is eventually going to bite them in the ass in the form of Hilary Swank. And also when it comes to like having surprising actors pop up in the middle of nowhere, Catherine Waterston pops up in this movie as a hospital bus driver, mobile hospital technician, and we see her just to be kind of adding like a little love life to Channing Tatum's character, and it really is very self-servicing and just at face value. It doesn't really add much to it.
Yeah. Like, you see a woman randomly walk outside, right? And there's some hints of, oh, maybe, and this is weird dialogue all the time of, oh, hey, that needs stitches. Oh, it's too late. Have you ever had like, these are some really weird questions to ask a random person who's just hanging out eating like a Little Debbie snack on the side of the store. So it's very, very weird component. And I actually didn't even realize that she was the same woman from Alien Covenant as she was in Fantastic Beasts. So good on my part on not doing that. Anything else?
Nope, that'll be it.
Cool. Mocha, what you got for me?
Yeah. I'm pretty on board with a lot of what Brylan said. I feel like this movie leaned pretty heavily on the tropes and the general pacing of previous heist movies. It's funny because I went into this movie not really knowing much about it. It was, as you mentioned earlier, voted on by our Twitter follower base. And so that, as a result, it was the movie that we would review, so I decided to just go into it as it was. And while I was watching it, I was like, man, this movie just feels like the director kind of just pulled a lot of stuff from the Ocean series. And then I got out of the film later on and did some research and realized that it was the director of the Ocean series.
Yep.
And that makes sense. And it seems like he kind of just leaned heavily on his own work, which ultimately is fine because it was a fun movie. The heist aspect was fun, and it's kind of hard to break free of traditional heist tropes when you're doing a heist movie. But still, I would have, especially knowing that Soderbergh had done the previous Ocean's movies, I would have loved to have seen him try to do something different with this film, aside from just having each character have an accent. That was probably the biggest difference between this movie and any of the Oceans that I've seen. And I would just like to see him go further in that regard. Brylan, I know that you were a fan of Seth MacFarlane showing up in this film, but the moment that it dawned on me that the guy under the Jerry curl wig was Seth MacFarlane, I completely lost interest in his character. And I don't want to say it's like I'm some major Seth MacFarlane hater. I think that he's smart, and I think that he's actually added a lot of positive things to my generation's understanding of comedy and what is funny and, you know, how we handle parody. But for some reason, Seth MacFarlane himself, was just very, I don't know, of all the actors that were in the film, he stood out the most as sort of like a sore thumb. And I couldn't stop thinking about the fact that it was Seth MacFarlane once I realized that it was Seth MacFarlane.
Yeah.
He was like the biggest caricature out there besides like the stepdad.
Yeah, and like each of the characters seemed to be doing, each actor rather seemed to be playing a really subtle character, or at least a character that involves subtleties. And Seth MacFarlane's character was kind of just like, hey, I'm Seth MacFarlane, and this is how I interpret a guy with a British accent. And it just seemed very, very forced. And again, he wasn't bad in his role, but something about him being there just kind of took me out of the moment.
I don't think they needed to do it. Like, you could have done that same character without all the other stuff. Just done a normal, regular character, like maybe boisterous character. Don't put a wig on him. Don't put a fake mustache on him, and just do this character. It's funny if he's Seth MacFarlane, but maybe he has other gimmick or other shtick. Or just maybe because like he's really like this other mogul that's like talking like really hamming up how good this energy drink is, and it's not. But I don't think you have to do all the things that they did in the movie, because it's definitely going to distract you from the rest of the movie. It's also kind of weird.
Yeah, that's the thing. He was a distraction for me. Every other actor was an actor playing a role. Mm-hmm. But Seth MacFarlane was hiding Seth MacFarlane beneath this like Soul Glow wig. And that was like, that's what really like pulled me out of the moment.
Let your soul. Sorry, God.
Or maybe like blend his character and Sebastian Stan's character.
Yeah,
and that would have more of a connection. Because Sebastian Stan's character seemed like they
like flip the character.
Yeah, Sebastian Stan's character seemed to come out of nowhere, and the only loose connection was Seth MacFarlane's character.
Yeah.
Sebastian Stan's character was legitimately funny on his own, and honestly, the screen time that Seth MacFarlane had, I would have rather have seen Sebastian Stan have that, because his character was funny. Sebastian Stan is a pretty good actor on his own, and again, Sebastian Stan wasn't like hidden underneath a wig and a fake mustache.
I mean,
I don't know.
Like, truthfully, I don't think the characters needed to be there at all, but you know, the character was there anyway, and it's like, all right, well, you know, how can we make that character effective? I don't think you have to do something crazy for it. Like, the movie itself is already pretty crazy. The moment that you start putting more normal things that we can believe of, oh, this person's normal, right? No, actually, it's flip it on its head. The normal things in this movie are crazy, and the crazy things are kind of normal. Like, that's be okay.
Yeah. And that's the thing, you know, Seth MacFarlane's character was there early in the film to show that the Logan brothers have a very strong bond and that they are, without even talking, able to defend each other to the best of their abilities and work in unison to kind of get at people who are messing with them. This could have been done by Sebastian Stan. Those two things could have been done by anybody. So, like, everything about his character felt forced. And I'm not anti-Seth MacFarlane. It just didn't work for me in this movie. At least with all the accoutrement on his face to, like, get in the way.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
I'm actually like super into the whole Hilary Swank going undercover outside department orders plot thread. You know, what we saw at the end where after the FBI tells her, hey, let go of this case, their alibis are tight and we have better things to put our money on, she apparently goes rogue and goes undercover to try to form a relationship with Clyde and see if she can like crack the case on her own. That's an awesome idea. I'm into it. Why did that happen as like the very end of the movie? Like, I don't think anyone going in this movie was expecting it to be a franchise. I don't think anyone went into this movie was expecting to see Logan Lucky's 12. But that's like a really cool plot thread. And you spent all of the movie, an hour and a half of the movie, going through the heist. In the last half of the movie, showing these FBI agents failing to do their job. I would have loved to have seen the last half of the movie and focused on Hilary Swank trying to like figure out what was going on with the heist while undercover. That's super interesting.
Yeah.
I don't think it worked as a cliffhanger.
No.
I would have rather have just seen them cheers their shots and take it and have a happy ending instead of just being told, oh, by the way, you don't get to see this, but Hilary Swank is trying to infiltrate their friend group and find out that they actually got it. Like, that doesn't do anything for me unless I'm going to have a sequel, and this movie does not deserve a sequel as is.
I mean, I thought it'd be funny if we can, like, in order to kind of see that, right, they introduced Hilary Swank, but Hilary Swank's character was there the entire time. And I think that would have been effective, right? If Hilary Swank's character was at the bar the first time of the fight, if Hilary Swank's character was one of the prison guards somehow, right? Hilary Swank's character was at the actual NASCAR event, and Hilary Swank was then back at the bar at the end, and she's like, hey, I have all this evidence, and she then, like, tries to take this group down externally and notice that doesn't work throughout the entire movie, and we see her doing these, we see her gathering this information, so that in the end, right, maybe she's working as a bar back, maybe she's like working at the bar, or it's just like there, right, or he's hired her, or maybe even in the end, like, somebody makes fun of a Logan and she defends him, right, and they talk about how defending their family, that's like what they do, and that's how she becomes part of their crew. But that string is everywhere in the movie, and that's given her more motivation. Now, does that lead to another sequel? I mean, possibly, but that at least makes it a little bit more impactful of all the way from the very beginning, Hilary Swank, if my theories are what I was talking about, if there's a flashback, Hilary Swank's character has like this vendetta against the Logans. Or even Hilary Swank's character caused the Logans to have this issue like with their family, right? For some reason, like, I don't know, like, I'm just like spitballing here, but I think it would have been like very helpful if we would have just seen her. Even if you do a retcon, right, and you do a bunch of flashbacks, there was definitely no character there, but she just emerges for some reason. I think that also would have been very funny in order to make fun of your own movie, and I think it would have still been pretty impactful.
Yeah, or have her be the top cop of the racetrack security force.
Yeah.
And actually, both those points, Warren, your discussion about having Hilary Swank in there more often, and Brian, your point about having her be the top cop of the racetrack security, leads perfectly into my next point of contention, which is the fact that there was a lack of a centralized villain for this movie. resulted in a complete and utter lack of tension during the actual heist.
Yeah.
As far as I'm concerned, the only tension that existed during the heist was whether or not they would fuck it up. But there was no counteracting force. There was no one hunting them down. There was no one trying to stop the situation. There was no one who was made aware of it well enough partway through to come and hunt them. And you don't need that in a given movie. But I think that for a heist, there needs to be a lot of things on the line, and B, an active antagonist that increases tension throughout as he or she gets closer to figuring out what the robbers are doing. And that didn't exist. This movie was just them doing the heist and them being goofy while they did the heist. And so I was left as a viewer saying, okay, well, at some point they're just going to fuck this up royally, and then that's going to turn into the big climax of the film. And that never really happened. We get some guards who swing by, but those guards are ineffectual.
Yeah.
Those guards are anything.
That's a good point, because, I think they're trying to build out an antagonist in the whole idea of the whole Logan curse, just using, the stories of how Channing Tatum blew out his knee in high school and now he's not going to the NFL, and how Adam Driver lost his arm in the Army is kind of like Channing Tatum's fault to encourage him to go into the Army. That they always have bad things happen to him. They just, but I felt like they didn't really sell it enough to actually make you feel like the curse was like a vital thing that was affecting their lives. Whereas in Ocean's 11, you have someone like the casino owner, Andy Garcia, Ocean's 11 only works if you have him as that bad guy.
Yeah. Well,
right.
What was the negative thing that happened with the sister?
Negative thing with the sister, I don't think they really mentioned anything.
No.
It was more about the brothers, and it was kind of like Clyde's thing that the family's cursed.
Okay.
Yeah, the sister actually goes out of her way to say that she doesn't believe in the family curse. That's Clyde's thing.
Yeah, I think some people look at her like in the traditional woman her age should be married and having kids and stuff, and that she's still single, still being a hairdresser and everything, and has not really moved. They see that she hasn't really moved on from that. That might be that's her part of the curse. But she says she doesn't really believe in it. So
Okay.
Yeah.
Mocha.
Yeah. Ultimately, I think that would have just made it better. Also, and this is the case. So a lot of movies, especially for myself, who's a big fan of sci-fi, nerdy comic book kind of stuff. I live in a world of suspension of disbelief. I go into every movie expecting to suspend my disbelief just so I can have a good time. That's sort of my baseline when I start any given movie. This movie in particular required a fair bit of suspension of disbelief. There were so many little loophole moments that I just let go because I was having a good time watching it. But, why wasn't there more security? They talk about, a big point of the film is that they plot for a specific day when no one will be there, and then it gets moved back a week to the busiest day of the year, and yet when they go to do their actual heist, not a single person is ever in their way, except for the two ineffectual guards that only go down because there's smoke. That doesn't line up at all. Why didn't the amount of smoke that was coming out of the tube in the concession stand actually caused a bigger deal for a packed stadium? That stadium was packed to the gills. It was their biggest day of the year. If I'm running a business and I have however many thousands of people in my stands watching, and this is the biggest day for advertisers, for marketers, for TV, and smoke starts pouring out of a fucking tube and anywhere, I'm gonna send people to investigate that shit thoroughly. Why didn't that happen? How did Jimmy Logan get the arm back to Clyde when he pulled it out of the machine? Because we know for a fact that he pulled it out of the machine after Clyde left to go back into the jail, which means that Clyde went to jail with no arm and then magically got his arm back at some point because no one in the jail was suspicious about the fact that the one-armed guy lost his arm.
Yeah,
well, actually, he didn't really have his arm in jail.
No,
they took that away from him.
He didn't have it. He got it after.
Oh, did they really?
Yeah, he got it after he left jail from the 90 days, and when he came home and opened up the case, I think you were supposed to assume that he has his old arm, he has his new arm, and a bunch of money in that case, but you don't know.
Okay, I retract that then. But
Yeah.
still, there are other moments of disbelief. The prison riot. There's the one guy that Joe Bang talks to before he escapes from prison. And the notion is, okay, Joe Bang told this guy, hey, start a prison riot. That's cool and all, but how are you going to get the other 60 people, 80 people that are in that prison to just join up with you, with none of them getting a cut, none of them understanding the reason why they're rioting?
Yeah.
There was a lot of suspension of disbelief required, and I don't think that makes it that's not a bad thing in and of itself, but it is something that needs to be, that like a viewer needs to be aware of going into this movie, because it doesn't all work out perfectly in terms of like actual logic and reason.
Yeah.
Yeah, or even why isn't the prison nurse, like, right after lockdown, not doing a head count of all her patients?
Right?
And saying, and like already not noticing that Joe Bang and Clyde are gone.
Oh, I thought you were gonna leave.
Or even the fact too that Joe Bang and Clyde got back into the prison disguised as firefighters. Like, would no one have noticed that there were two prisoners who were walking around the prison that weren't in the cafeteria when all the prisoners were in the cafeteria for this riot? Like, there's a lot of little things here and there, little details that I'm fine with getting rid of, with ignoring for the sake of enjoying the movie, because the movie was more enjoyable than it was frustrating, but they are absolutely there.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, I've already like sprinkled in and peppered in a bunch of my sort of criticism on behalf of the movie. The movie, it's like I couldn't see the entire movie, so I also want to be fair on that. But even when not watching the movie, I'm just surprised there wasn't enough any sort of challenges or complications to this crazy plan. I don't think they ran into any roadblock or any issue.
Every roadblock they ran into was constructed by Jimmy Logan.
Yeah. So it's just like, even in like the Ocean's 11s, they ran into a bunch of roadblocks, and they had to like we can at least see them quickly try to like think on the fly, like how they can do that. Oh, you kind of look like, this actress. Oh, don't say her name. And they at least kind of roll with that, right? But it was too neat, and much like Bradley was talking about before, like it was just too neat. It was too clean. Like there was just no consequences. I didn't feel like anybody was gonna get hurt, get killed, or go back to jail. Like everything felt like it tied up too quickly, too easily, and it kind of just felt like, oh, okay, I kind of know what's gonna happen in the end, and that's cool, that's cute and all, but I kind of was hoping for a bit of a different way down the road. I thought it was interesting. I mean, I think for sure, you take out the fake out of the audience, right? And if he would have just turned in the money, and I'm super interested to see how the movie would have ended if he would have turned in the money actually, and none of the other stuff would have happened. I thought that would have been interesting, because everybody, like, you can think it could have been successful. They were right there. They could have been successful, but then his conscience comes in and says, no, like, I don't want to do this. I want to do something a different way. I'm going to throw out the rules and I'm going to do things differently. And yeah, everybody's going to hate me. People are going to hate me, but who gives a shit, sort of thing. And I think that would have been effective. They didn't do that. They didn't go that way. That's fine. It was, like I said, it was still enjoyable, but I wanted to see something a little bit different. Because it's a different movie. And if you're going to do a different movie with all these crazy other things and this satirical, this comical cast, do something a little bit different just so that you can kind of keep the audience kind of wanting more. I think that's going to be like kind of, that would have been pretty effective for it. Yeah. I think that's going to be like my biggest criticisms, honestly. I kind of sprinkled in all the stuff what you guys said, but that was my biggest one of it. Just didn't seem like it was challenges. There was just no stakes involved, and I kind of like, I like steaks. I'm tired of chicken nuggets, So with our thank you. So let's get into let's actually get into some conclusions, our lasting thoughts, and some grades, and see what we got. I'm gonna toss it over to Mr. Brylan.
So I'm gonna give Logan Lucky B. The reason I do that is there's some great funny moments here. One of the other standout funny moments is whenever Melly is taking down the stepfather Peg about how he can't drive a real car, or that he's just a shitbird. I always like that. And but there's It's enjoyable on a very surface level, not much to get you engaged with the characters and know more about them. And there's just some really weird pacing that happens in this movie.
Mocha, what you got for me?
I'm going to go ahead and give this film a B-. It was a really fun movie to end the summer with. It leaned a bit too heavily on typical heist movie tropes, in my opinion. But honestly, that's not a terrible thing. If you see Logan Lucky before you see any of the Ocean's movies, you're going to have an amazing time.
Yeah.
Versus if you see it afterwards, you're still going to enjoy it, but you're going to notice Soderbergh's typical approaches to the film.
Yeah.
But ultimately, regardless of all that, it was still a delightful cast that had a really great sense of self-awareness that made for a really fun romp for an hour and then 45 minutes or 2 hours, however long it was.
2 hours. Yeah. Cool. My grade for this one is probably going to be the best one is a B+. That's probably a bit unfair because I didn't see some of it, but all the stuff that I did see, I enjoyed it because there was a lot of underlying, I think Mocha even mentioned it, there's a lot of underlying things talked about family, talking about caring, and these people are, arguably convicts, ex-convicts, they didn't do a lot of good stuff when they've been kind of getting in trouble in a bunch of stuff, or mainly kind of Jimmy. And there's a lot going wrong for that entire family, but and he still has an ex-wife and arguing with his ex-wife and that stuff that happens there, but they make sure that the girl can have what she wants and how she wants to do and what she wants to do, and that little girl is kind of great. So I think that's a good message that they kind of went from it. Yes, it is being a heist movie, but bad guys are not bad guys. That's a
yeah.
Thank you. So I yeah, right. I enjoyed that part of it. I enjoyed the at least that message that they sent. And I just enjoyed everybody just really had a good time. You can tell that people making this movie are gonna have a lot of fun. Just like the Ocean's 11 movies of this star-studded cast are just gonna come in there and have a blast. So my grade for this film for Logan Lucky will be a B+. Yeah. And with that, I'm sad, but I'm excited to finish off our conversation of Logan Lucky. And let's talk about a bunch of our work. So we are the Down in Front podcast. We are here. We are back. We are going to be in your face and talking about a bunch of stuff, whether it's football, horror movies, Stranger Things coming up. I mean, there's so many other releases that's happening before the end of the year. So definitely stay tuned because we have a lot of other small projects and a lot of other side projects that you're going to hear a lot of new voices on. And I'm super, super pumped. I'm super, super excited about that. Definitely find more of our work on Apple Podcasts as well as the iTunes Store. Feel free to go and rate us, give us a review, put us 5 stars, or give us 1 star, but that's okay. If you give us a 1 star, tell us why. Tell us why, And then this one, if you do give us a 5 star, tell us what's a question that you want to know, Brylan?
A question I want to know.
Yeah.
What are you wearing?
No.
When you review us, what are you wearing when you review us?
I'm wearing a RoboCop shirt and some Under Armour shorts.
I'm wearing a green shirt.
Let us know who is your favorite action star right now?
Oh, I think it's going to be easy for everybody, but okay. So when you do review us on iTunes, just let us know who's your favorite action star. Hands down, mine's going to be The Rock. He's going to be the future president, so why not? But yeah, so we're super pumped. Find more of our work just about everywhere. We also have an email, so downinfrontpodcast@gmail.com. If you want to have any particular reviews or any questions about the show, or if you want to actually be on the show, just let us know. Shoot us an extra line at downinfrontpodcast@gmail.com. We have a Facebook, so facebook.com/downinfrontpodcast is where we put a bunch of our posts, kind of new things that we're actually going to be kind of tossing out there just to get people sort of involved, and we want to actually hear more and more from all of our beautiful Ryan Dowds and our Derek Chunks out there. Bradley, where can we find more of your work?
Well, you can find me on our new Gamescast at twitch.tv/downinfrontpodcast. Next episode, we'll probably be wrapping up Life is Strange. We're getting into the home stretch of that. And it's definitely taken a really dark girl with a dragon tattoo type of twist to it. If you saw it today on this previous episode, we'll have those highlights out for you. You can also find me doing my personal things, trying to get lucky on Twitter at Brilund, BRILUND. I also will post many movie and TV reviews on Instagram. It is I am Brilund. I'm also playing around with Snapchat these days. I'm always trying to expand my social media outlets. So trying to see what random things I can take a picture of and send out to the world.
Nice. All right, yeah. So typically, when do you do when does the Twitch and the Gamecast go on?
Trying to get it to be on every Thursday from 2 to 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It may shift a day or so depending on scheduling, but that's going to be where you can probably reach us for the most part.
Nice. Yeah, thanks so much. I had a great time. I literally watched that as I'm working, and people are like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Don't worry about it. Leave me alone. I want to just." I'm like, it's literally like a movie, and it's like watching the movie. I just have a great time. You can actually kind of chat. You get back to me pretty quickly, which I thought that guy today, his name was Warren, and I thought was awesome in the actual game. So it's like, oh no way. But it's very enjoyable just actually kind of watch these walkthroughs and just watch you kind of play this game. And I think you arguably may have the best commentary. I'm super pumped to have you and probably you and Jesse kind of talk about that. So kudos to you, my friend. Kudos to you.
Thank you.
Mr. MOCHA, where can I find more of your work?
Yes. You can find me on Twitter at MOCHA Mike, Li, as the Lord intended. Unfortunately, you cannot find me at MOCHA Mike because the individual who has that username is currently in jail. I'm concocting an elaborate plan to break him out of jail so that I can force him at gunpoint to give up that username so that I can have it because brand consistency is key. But until then, you can find me at MOCHA Mike Li on Twitter. You can also find me on Instagram where I post a lot of my photography work at MOCHA Mike. And you can also follow me on Medium, where I post long-form reviews of the movies and TV shows that we talk about here on Down in Front, as well as 3-page-long rants about why the Inhumans TV show has let me down. And you can find me there at medium.com/@MOCHAMike. That's medium.com/@MOCHAMike.
Cool. And we have the Down in Front podcast. We also have a couple other things that we want to kind of highlight. So we're on Twitter. We're on Patreon, and we also have a YouTube. So our Twitter is going to be @_DIFP. That's _DIFP. That stands for Down in Front Podcast. We have a YouTube link that we're going to be posting it. We're going to be putting out a video teaser that we talk about some of the couple of things that we actually be putting out, as well as our Twitch and our Gamecast is going to be on there, as well as our kind of next up is a couple other reviews and future reviews that we're going to be talking about. So definitely stay tuned for that. Feel free to subscribe to us, like us. That'll be awesome. Just so we can get you more and more content for that. And then lastly, we do have a Patreon. So patreon.com/downinfrontpodcast. And where we'll just accepting any and all donations as possible, just so that we can continue to keep watching these movies, getting this content out for you. And anything is less than just $1 for that. That'll be great for us because we're actually going to be doing a bunch of different tiers. So we do side episodes, we do bonus episodes. We're giving more and more content. We're going to do more polls. We're going to get more and more stuff into the hands of these beautiful, beautiful listeners. Yes, Ryan Dowds. Yes, Derek Sons. We're talking to you. So that is patreon.com/downinfront. And we are the Down in Front Podcast. We will say thank you so much for hanging out with us, and we will see you soon for our next review of it.
And before we go, if you do have any thoughts or feelings for Jesse, you can reach Jesse at Jesse's Pre-Wrapped Hard-Boiled Eggs at 123.com. It's brought to you by China this week.
If anyone in our group ate pre-wrapped hard-boiled eggs, it would be Jesse.
It's definitely Jesse. We're gonna have to post that poll in a moment. So thank you so much. Thanks so much, guys. We'll see you later.
Bye. Stay lucky, everybody. Bow, bow.